excited because realized I just needed to relax. So I started relaxing, I was feeling pretty confident. So I went to the store and I bought a bunch of food that I don't normally buy, keep in my house, and brought it home and decided I was going to eat some ice cream. And then I kept eating it, and then I got tired of eating that, and I went to something else, and it tasted good, so I started eating it, and I'm like, why am I eating this? Then I realized it was because I realized that there was a part I was having, it felt like it was fulfilling this excitement, like there was a party in my refrigerator, and when I realized that, I quit, and I was in bed.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next day, I woke up, and I was at work, and I work from home, and I just ate something, and then I just kept eating it, and then because it tasted good, and I was like, I gotta set some kind of boundaries around this because I'm not hungry, but I can easily go from one thing that doesn't taste good anymore to something completely different, and it tastes really good, and be full. So.
Okay. I already know where you're limited right now and just what you're saying. I've got it. I've got what it is. Can I tell you what it is?
Okay.
You actually believe that the reason you're overeating is because it tastes good. That's not even true. That's just a thought. You need to get beyond that. So here's a good sign. The night prior when you were asking and you were eating and you asked yourself, why am I doing this? Well, it's because it's a party. And you know what I heard? That's something to do. You're bored. It gives you something to do. It gives you a sense of purpose. It fills up your time. It's not about tasting good. You've got to get beyond that because that's your block right there. When you say it tastes good, you're really saying, I don't want to address the real reasons. I don't even want to talk about it, right? Because if it really just is about tasting good, there's no hope. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like I'm just keep going around in this circle.
Well, and that's why I feel like the block you're having, and I first of all, I think you've made progress already. The fact that you actually stopped to question and ask why you were doing what you're doing, that to me, I'm like sitting over here excited, like, oh my God, she's making progress. Okay.
Well, here's the thing, though. I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I have these games, these card games I play by myself, and all this stuff I do by myself. But like, I made an appointment last week. Get my hair done.
Mm-hmm.
But since I've been doing all this I've gained weight. I had moved the car seat back in my car, so I know I'm gaining weight. And I can't go to the hair salon because I barely fit in the seat the last time I went, and I'm worried that I might break it or something if I go now. And so I canceled the appointment because of the anxiety around it. Someone asked me out on a date Saturday. I canceled that too because I don't know if I'm going to be able to sit in a chair comfortably long enough to actually. And I'm just not ready for that anyway. I just can't do that right now. And
well, you're not in a headspace to do it. You're not in a good, healthy sense of self. You can't screw the body image.
I don't know what to do with myself to make it do. I feel like I just need to work on. I feel like I need to take a break from everything, including my job, and just work on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, my father left me some money, so which I don't have yet, but I feel like I'll have the money to do that, and I don't know if that's a cop out, or if I really just need to take a break from everything, just focus on getting better, so that I can be a better functioning person down the line. So I don't know if that's just me. I don't know if that's me just copping out from life, or if that's me just being real.
Well, it sounds real to me because I would agree with you. I'm not telling you to. First of all, you can work on yourself. You just need the space to do it. So and tell me if I'm wrong. I'm going to see if I can replay this and give it some context for you. What it sounds like to me is that your integrity is in line. You do want to get better. You want to feel better. You want to function better in your thought process, right? Because it sounds to me like you're having a hard time because it's all of these things are coming at you, and you don't necessarily have the mind space to just be still, let alone take on all the chaos that you're experiencing and perceiving.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a lot of chaos for a regular person, but for me, it's like every little thing takes
correct.
So much.
Yeah, and you know what? That's true. It is true, and that's what you want to correct. Find out how you can resolve this. You're struggling to survive.
Yeah.
Right? So there's some truth to what you're saying. I don't think it's a cop-out. What would the cop-out be? You know, what is the cop-out? The cop-out would be, I don't hear that at all. Trust me, if I felt like there was a cop-out, I would tell you.
Yeah, you would.
So, I don't feel that way. I'm not getting that sense. I'm going to go back to when I hit rock bottom, I had to stop. I had to stop going to college. I had to stop the training I was doing for the sport that I was playing. I had to stop. I had to leave my husband. I had to eliminate anything that wasn't in line with my truth. I couldn't handle the pressure of performing for other people, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to put it. It's like today I've been eating, and so when I eat a lot of food, my brain slows down. I can't make decisions well, and so I had this issue come up at work, and I couldn't decide what to do about the complaint, and I looked up the wrong complaint in our system, so I responded to the person with the wrong answer because it was the wrong case. And then when I did, I mean, it's just stupid little stuff. And then my boss is out this week, so her boss was answering the email, and she was like, you don't have to do anything with this. And I did anyway because the other person that had sent the first email had asked me to. So anyway, it was just like I was basically did what she told me not to do. And it's just so much stress over one little, and it's just probably doesn't even matter. She's probably not even, she's probably just responding to the email. She's probably not thinking I'm doing a bad job. It's just that I'm so stressed out over every little, little thing.
Yeah. Do you get a sense that's a consequence of how you're dealing with yourself? Like if you could deal with what you're personally going with, you wouldn't be so sensitive, but you're sensitive because you're not dealing with yourself.
Well, I feel like I'm just falling apart because
correct.
I can't keep eating like this.
Well, pause. You're going. Okay, you're going through another cycle, and I feel really grateful right now because I feel like I'm getting some clarity. There is a lot of shit you're not facing. You're refusing to talk about it. You don't want to bring it up. You are completely avoiding the truth. You are distracting completely to the food. The food is not the problem. The food is your weapon of choice. There is something underneath it all that you are repressing. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. Your food consumption is your tool. You're hiding. You're hiding is what you're doing. Food is a cloak for you. Hide, eat, hide. So it's not about the taste of the food. It's what you get out of it, which is hiding. What are you hiding from?
All I know is that when I, like, on the weekend, like, I know that I just get really sad and really depressed.
Okay.
And so I know I'm hiding. I mean, I don't know how to, like, get through the day, just feeling like that all day long, and the food does help me.
Okay, repress it.
Feel that way.
You're repressing it. You're what you're just, and it's not the food. Again, just know that it is just, it could be anything. Some people shop. Some people, get on social media and troll. It's the intent of what you're doing that is the problem. It isn't what you're doing that's the problem, right? Clearly, you now have physical consequences of the choice, but you're avoiding these emotions. And so you can sit here and say, I got to stop eating, when in reality, you should say, I should stop avoiding these emotions and what's underneath. It's like trying to cover it up, So do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's not. I do. I just don't know how to.
Well, the first thing is you need to stop saying it's because it tastes so good. I think that is one of the biggest lies you're telling yourself. What you're doing is you're avoiding the truth. You'd rather just say it tastes so good, that's why I do it, because then you don't have to talk about the truth. This is where the disease model is so enabling. I know that's not true because I've been there and done that. This is like bullshit. I'm going to call bullshit. It's not about the taste. You've convinced yourself out of your own, I think, self-protection. If it's about the taste of food, then it's not about what's underneath all this. I don't have to bring it up. The problem is you're probably extremely afraid to bring up what's underneath it. The fear comes from the belief that you can't handle it. That first of all, there's fear in there, and there's a belief that you cannot handle it, you will not survive. If you bring these emotions up or what's underneath here forward, it'll kill you. So I eat. And there's pleasure in the fact that you get a sense of safety in that. Food is what makes me feel safe. But at the same time, it brings about all the shame, the physical limitations. It's like you're cannibalizing your life. At some point in this process, you're going to have to go into what is it that you are afraid of. If we removed your food, what is it that will come forward?
Well, I think I have to put the food down in order to do that.
Well, I would agree, but you do have the capacity of foresight. That's the beauty of being a human being. All you got to do is think about it. It'll come up. Just in your thinking about it. You'll experience a physical reaction just thinking about it. If you put down the food and did not eat it, what would come up? You've already hit 2, sad and depressed. What are you hiding from? What does it feel like?
It just feels like just a lot of anxiety.
Okay. Anxiety is, let me just explain that to you, what anxiety is. Anxiety is basically the beginning of fear. Like you're starting to feel the Pringles of fear, the pricks of fear. It's kind of like the electricity of fear. So when you feel fear, how long can you tolerate it? How do you respond?
By eating.
Yeah, so you don't really feel it.
Yeah, I usually, like, it seems to just go way back. Like, when I was in FA and I stopped overeating for a year and a half, I started missing my mother, who died 15 years before that. And that's when I started to grieve. So I know that, I don't feel things when I'm eating. And I know that when I was able to grieve her death because at that time, and it took me about 7 years to stop. I think the first 3 years I just cried every day because it just brought that out.
Yeah, well, and you have to face it. You have to face what your perceptions were about it. You have to face it, and you have to actually allow those feelings of grief to exist, to actually resolve them, and that takes courage. So I think what you're missing right now is some courage, right? The other thing I think, let's talk about what fear is. What is it? Tell me what it is that fear. Well, to you, what does it mean? When it comes up, what does it tell you? What is it telling you? What does it feel like? What do you assume about fear?
That it's gonna kill me.
Yep, I had that in my head. I'm like, I'm hoping she gets it. You got it. It does feel like it's gonna kill you. It feels like you're gonna die. Underneath all of this, and this is how it was for me too. And I want to tell you, I can actually say I know exactly what you're experiencing to the T. I have been there. I have felt it. It feels like it's gonna murder you. Like you're gonna die, and it's gonna be a horrific death. Don't look at it, right?
Well, I remember when you said the other day, you said we were talking about fight or flight, and I was trying to think, why am I always feeling like that? And Saturday when all this started, I was thinking that, I haven't been attacked in years. And like when I was growing up, my mom was like, she was like this. Like 1 minute she would just start yelling and screaming for no reason, and then 2 minutes later she would be like, "Okay, Heather, it's time for dinner." But she was like, you never knew when you're gonna be like
attacked.
She's really nice. So anyway, that's the kind of environment I grew up in. And at school, I always felt like I was overweight, so I was always being picked on. So I was always looked out. I was always being attacked. There was always something I had to look out for. But I haven't been that way in years. But I think I feel, I'm surprised, like when people are nice to me, and I'm still in that defensive mode of who's coming for me today.
Well,
reality, nobody's coming for me.
Right. Could you see now why you would be so fearful of someone's opinion?
Yeah.
Because
you're thinking that too.
Yeah.
But
even if you
if I'm not like if I'm around someone who has a very strong personality, I can't work with them.
Mm-hmm. Because you're in fight or flight mode because you're the potential of being attacked. Someone that you feel inferior to, you would feel really you'd become very tense around.
Yeah, and when I'm around people like that, I can't really do my job well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you kind of go into like, what's the word? You start to short circuit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's not. I'm not, and it's limited me very much in my.
Okay.
So now I do. So anyway, I just
Okay.
I need a break so I can learn how to deal with. That's why I feel like I'm copping out. Because I'm like, if I quit my job, then I'm not facing what people are doing. I'm not facing life. You know?
Yeah, well, I want you to, let's just go into the facing of it in this moment. It really isn't about quitting your job and you can, sure, but is that really the direction you need to go, especially if that job gives you a sense of purpose and self, a sense of being able to take care of yourself? I wouldn't make that decision right this second. Let's face this right now. That's what I'm here for. Okay? Let's face it.
Okay.
Let's face what fear is. I know it comes across like it's going to kill you. Don't you agree? Isn't that the intention of the emotion of fear, is to warn you?
Yeah.
That's what it does. That's how it's supposed to work. But it's supposed to be attached to like a rattlesnake or a bear or, something that's going to kill you, literally. The problem is yours is very specifically triggered towards being attacked. So it's not just there's a bear or we're on a high rise. Are you scared of heights?
I'm scared of elevators and closed spaces, but not.
Got it.
Not really. Yeah.
Okay, would you say that it feels the same? Like if you're in a closed space, this type of feeling of like, I'm going to suffocate, I'm going to die, comes up.
I'm not going to be able to get out if something happens.
Yeah, wouldn't you agree that's different though? That's almost easier than when you get into fear of being attacked by another person.
No.
Like being judged. Like being judged. Like it's still fearful. There's still anxiety, but there's something different about it.
Well, I don't really feel like I can be myself around people.
Yeah, don't you agree that is more traumatic than, let's just say, being on an elevator? At least being on an elevator, there's boundaries and edges that you understand. It's predictable. You understand exactly what the fear is coming from. Falling to your death, that to you is understandable. It's predictable, and so it's not as mysterious. When it comes to relating to other people, there's a lot of vulnerability because there's mystery and there's timing and there's, can I trust them and can I handle it? There's a lot more dynamic movement involved. So when you're talking about relating to people, that's why I said, can you see that there's a difference between the elevator and what you and I are actually trying to get into?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, but it manifests physically the same, right? It's just manifests psychologically different. The physicality of fear is actually quite basic. How would you describe it? How does it come across physically? What does it feel like?
Terrifying. It just feels like...
Physically. I want you to describe the physical feeling of it. Your heart starts to race. You become kind of, your hair raises. Your head might hurt. Your stomach feels like it's turned in knots. You might actually have cold sweats. Again, I used to feel like my throat was shutting. Like everything was the room felt like it was collapsing in. It's almost like I became just tunnel vision.
I feel like I'm going to faint. And
yeah, that's the headache. That's the head part. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your heart feels like it's going to come out of your chest. Your hair is raising. You know, your stomach is like, and your whole body is saying, do something, do something, do something, do something, do something, do something.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, get rid of that thought because just remove that. That's not what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about facing. That's how you get rid of the feeling, right? And don't you agree? If anybody out there who had that feeling and the intensity of it that you experience, and if for them food got rid of it, they would eat too.
Yeah.
I know. Pretty basic, right? Okay, so if someone else had that intensity of fear, right? And the intensity and not only that, but would you say that you are afraid of fear? You're afraid of the feeling of fear. Like as soon as you feel that sense, you become extremely fearful of that fear to the point where you react super fast. There's no time between you feel the fear, or you're eating food.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So if you really think about it, though, let's talk about what which one's worse. The description physically that we experience, just look at the physical experience of it. And I want you to compare it to nausea. Which one's worse, the physical experience of fear with the heart beating and your hair raised and the tightness of breath, or nausea?
It wouldn't be nausea.
Nausea's way worse.
No.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. You're not listening to what I'm saying. I'm talking about the physicality. Nausea is far worse than the physical sensation of fear. Cutting your fingers, way worse. It's extremely pain. Having a baby, pushing a baby out your vagina, so much worse.
Okay, I'm with you there.
Okay, see, I knew when you said, no, it's not, I was like, oh, no. Nausea is 10 times worse than the physical sensation of fear.
Well,
100 times worse.
I don't feel fear, so to me it's better, but cutting off my finger would be worse.
Nausea is worse. What I'm saying is absolute truth. The physicality of fear is actually not that big of a deal. It's the fear of it. It's fear of fear that is horrible. It is horrific. You're going to die. That's different. Okay? I'm just trying to help you have perspective around it. That there is the physicality of fear, the hair raising, the heart palpitating, the stomach in knots, the cold sweats, the rapid breathing. That it physically is actually quite tolerable.
Okay.
Just imagine when you feel full and you're in extreme pain, that is 10 times worse than the actual physical sensation of fear. Hair raising on end. That's not a big deal. Rapid heart rate happens every time I walk upstairs. Cold sweats.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like the physicality, the experience of the fear is actually quite tolerable. It's what you believe about it that is absolute nightmare.
I think it's hard to. I'm not feeling it right now, so it's kind of hard to.
No, you can actually follow me. I'm not going to let you back out of that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You do. I'm just trying to get you to face it. You don't want to face it.
I think wanting to eat and not being able to eat is more intolerable than feeling really full. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it.
Oh, I totally agree. I absolutely agree with you. You're correct. 100%. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. You're correct. The problem is what you're afraid of is in your mind. It's in a mind. It's a mental fear that you're not willing to even open up to. So it's an illusion you have never even faced. You've never even faced it. Part of it is because, and this is what I was trying to say to you at the beginning when I was like, hold on, you keep on saying it's because it tastes so good. And you and I both know that that's not actually the truth. It really isn't. That's a distraction. That's like a deflection, right? What's underneath it is actually what's driving this. It is not the pleasure of the food that's driving this.
I think the fear, there's a combination of fear and shame and depression, it all occurs at the very same time.
And it feels like you're going to get murdered. Yeah, it feels like you're going to die. And it's a horrible death. Okay, I need to make sure we make this point. I want to complete this point. When you say it's because the food tastes so good, you and I both know that that is a lie. It is not about the pleasure of food at all. I don't think you're intentionally lying. I don't think you're wanting to hide the facts. I just think you've convinced yourself, and that's what's because you're afraid to address and face what's underneath it. It's so much easier to say that it's the pleasure of food. That is like, now that's a cop-out.
Okay, I'm with you.
You're copping out by saying it tastes so good. That's a cop-out. I won't buy it. You can get some addict person that thinks that you have a disease. They'll buy that. It is the pleasure of food. Oh, really? Anna? No, it's not. It's important for you to come to that and and face the truth of what I'm saying. Because in facing that truth and admitting it to yourself, you're going to make some progress, right? If you're not willing to face just that alone, are you going to make any progress?
I'm willing to face it if it's true.
Okay, I want you to answer my question.
Yes, I'm willing to face it.
I didn't ask that. I just want you to answer my question. The question was, if you're not willing to face the truth of what I just said, are you going to recover?
No.
You won't, because it's always about the food. It just tastes so good, Robin. God, you're...
I never had anybody talk to me the way you do, and obviously it just blows my mind.
It's because I care about you, and I'm not putting you down.
No, I know you're not.
That's why. That's why.
I've never had the only person that has ever talked to me that way without me getting my feelings hurt.
Oh, well, it could be because you want this is why, because you have asked for this help, and you want it, and you know you need it. That's why. Now tell me this, if I wasn't willing to call bullshit in the moment I see it, would you even be willing to pay me? No.
I trust that you have the answer.
Well,
which is why I'm paying this money.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, you paid me to tell you bullshit and call it out. Because you can feed it to yourself all you want. And clearly, is it working? No. So the first thing... Well, you are not, you're so afraid of fear, okay? This for some reason, it came clear to me in this session. I don't know why. I don't always have clarity because I think you're so in chaos when we talk. I don't have the clarity. For some reason, there was a moment I had total and complete clarity around what you were doing. The moment you said, the food tastes so good, I was like, she's lying. It was just, and I don't think you intended, okay, because I think you believe that, but that belief that it's about the food, I know it serves the fact that you're afraid. You are so afraid to face what's underneath that it feels better and safer to just blame it on the pleasure of food.
I can't fix what's underneath it.
You can't face it. You can't face it. You can't face it. You don't make the assumption you can't fix it because you've never faced it. How do you know you can't fix it?
I felt it, but I don't know what to do with
You're not facing it. There's a difference between I feel it and I face it.
Do you remember that book that, are you familiar with Janine Ross and her book?
I have never read her book, but I have heard of her. She did Women, Food, and God. And,
well, she wrote a book called When Food is Love, and I read it when I was a teenager. And that was the first time that I felt, well, whatever the feeling is that's underneath all this. That's the first time I felt it.
Mm-hmm.
And felt it for days. So I didn't know what to do with it because there's no, after you read the book, there's nothing. There's no instruction book. There's no, coaching. There's nothing. There's just this book, and she writes all this stuff in it. And I don't know. I don't even have the book, so I can't remember what it said. I just remember I read that book, and I was able to feel all those feelings that.
Well, I think part of the problem is that she still infers that you need to lose weight. And that's kind of what I've gleaned from some of the stuff I've read, that there's always this underlying concept that you need to face these things so that you can eventually lose weight. That to me is that's where there's a block in her awareness of what's underneath it for herself. But anyways, I could be wrong. I haven't read enough to actually make an educated, have a perception about it, But anyways, so you haven't you need to face it. There's a difference between feeling and having, like, my hair is starting to stand on end. I am afraid of this. So that's a feeling. Okay. And then there's facing it, which is actually breathing it into your goddamn lungs, inviting it into your soul space and having a conversation with it, asking questions. What are you doing here? What is this about? What am I afraid of? What is that going to do to me? And you're facing, it's like having the Grim Reaper in front of you and taking off its cloak. You've never done that. That is actually a very accurate description. You're facing the Grim Reaper. You've never looked at it. You just felt it, right? You felt it. It's in the room. It's there. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it has to do with my mother. She's dead. So I don't think I don't know.
Yeah, but your perception of her is not dead. You have to change your perception of her that makes her so threatening,
Well, I have to see her as a person and not this perfect God person that,
Yeah, she might have had it sounds like she might have had horrible mental health issues too. If she had rage and then pretended it wasn't there and then had rage attacks, she had her own, struggles.
You were talking about perfectionism, and that runs in that side of my family and all of the children.
Okay, perfectionism is a symptom. It's actually, we all have it. Every single human being runs with perfectionism. It runs in everybody's family. The difference is you're either in survival mode or you're not. So if you're not in survival mode, perfectionism doesn't serve a purpose and we don't have it. So it's a symptom of survival mode. Okay? So you have generations of survival mode that no one's come out of it yet, right? Maybe until you. That's my goal.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I do. I'm just letting you know it's a human trait that everybody has under threat. Under threat, we become highly obsessive and controlling. And not only that, but when you're under certain circumstances, perfectionism is promoted. So it's a sign that you have perfectionism is a sign that you believe it's achievable, but it has to be done perfection is essentially a lack of lenience, but it's high reaching. That is not that's like everybody has that. It's just not everybody is in the environment that promotes it in us. Keep in mind, that is a symptom. It is not a trait. It's a human trait we all have. It's a symptom, however, of someone that is not secure.
Well, we all seem incredibly broken.
Well, and if you think of it this way, are you really broken, or are you working as your mind and body should under the situation, under the circumstance, under your thoughts, beliefs, perceptions? In my opinion, even your binge eating to me is like, well, of course that makes sense to me. We've talked about that. Like, it makes sense. Your behavior with food is absolutely what to be expected from someone who believes they should be starving. I mean, their animal instinct to preserve and to eat food is going to be constantly turned on. But on top of that, you have created this relationship with food that is a rescuer from this feeling of death that is always looming. Make sense?
Kinda, yeah.
Well, what part are you not getting? Or what?
Well, you keep talking about death, and I don't. I don't know. Well, I guess it could be death because.
Well, you're the one who said it feels like I'm gonna die. I'm gonna get killed. Something's gonna kill me. So you're the one that actually. What's underneath it? It feels like I'm gonna die.
I don't know how else to describe it.
Well, that's how I would describe it too. It feels like like one way to describe it too is like feels like I'm gonna get suffocated. Feels like someone's drowning me. They're pushing me underwater. Feels like I'm gonna get heaved from a cliff and I'm gonna fall to this. It's like a horrendous it's a horror story murder.
Yeah, that's how I feel when I sign on to my computer in the morning when I'm working. As soon as I start my day, I just feel like, oh my God. And my job is really not that difficult yet.
Well, it's maybe not the job that's triggering it. It's your feelings of inadequacy, feelings of failure. You might wake up and feel like I just cannot accomplish what I need to accomplish today. You know, you might wake up and the first thing you think is, I have to starve myself. How long can I wait till I can't? You know, you immediately wake up feeling.
I don't look forward to anything. It's all I gotta get up. I can't eat. I gotta work. I gotta do these.
I can't.
I gotta finish my cases. I gotta do nothing. I don't look forward to any part of my day.
Well, yeah, and how much of that begins with the pressure that you have to lose weight?
Well, it's kind of always there in the background. And that's
correct.
True. I do look forward to getting coffee in the morning.
I do too. Okay, you're right. That's not true. Coffee is my friend. Okay, but that always there, the idea, how much pressure do you feel that's always there? Does that immediately create anxiety? Immediately you wake up with this constant sense of, I have to do something, I have to do something, I have to do something because of my weight.
Yeah, every morning because I wake up and everything is heavy and I'm just slow.
Yep, and if you've binged the day prior, you're probably groggy, you're probably still, your sleep hormones are taking forever to subside.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that, but that's more than likely what that is. Your body basically is telling you, we need to hibernate, dearie. You're supposed to be hibernating.
Yeah.
Right? So just the first thing I think we really need to do is we need to really understand. I really feel like a big block of yours is continuing to believe that it's the pleasure and the taste of food. It's not. It's not. If we can get rid of that alone, we're going to start making progress pretty rapidly.
It also changes my mood. It gives me relief and it calms me down.
Well, of course, because, and then the other thing is, if you don't eat, you're going to get irritable. You're going to be pissed. You start to have.
Without it, I mean.
Well, okay, what a great question. Isn't that the question of your recovery?
Yes, Robin, tell me.
We are going to have to address the reasons and why is this feeling of death coming after you? Why is it there? Why is it always there to the point where if you don't eat, I mean, eating is just temporary, and you know that. It does give you this moment of like, okay, but it's not the food. It's not the pleasure of the food. I think that to me is so important in this session. I want to make sure you see that clearly and you can go, oh my God, she's right. I don't want you to go, okay, I have to memorize that. No, you need to open your mind and see that that's truthful. This is not about the pleasure of food. If I continue to say that, nothing's ever going to change. This is about getting rid of those feelings underneath it all. Is the food really that pleasurable, or is getting rid of those feelings pleasurable?
Well, getting rid of the feeling, it's helpful, but then I still have to eat. And then
pause. Just stop. Just stay where I have you. Just stay where I have you right now. Just stay present with where we're at. Is it the pleasure of food, or is it the relief from that fear and that anxiety and the panic that's building underneath it all?
Well, it's a party, like I said before.
Okay, I get that part, because that part is, fuck it, I'm going to eat what I want. You get excited about being free without shame and guilt. That's the party. That's the aspect of being free temporarily from the shame of eating when you shouldn't be, right? The moment you say fuck it, that's the party. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about the feelings that you have that are why you're negotiating for food. You're not negotiating for food for the food. You're negotiating for food to get rid of these feelings.
I mean, there's tons of reasons why it's not happy.
Say that one more time. There's tons of reasons why it's not what?
Why I am not, why I have stress.
Okay, so but just don't complicate it just yet. I want to keep you where we're at right now. I want you to hone in. You're kind of overwhelming yourself. I think that's a thing. You're kind of opening it up too quickly. I need you to just hone in on the fundamentals of what I'm telling you. Okay? Say that again. Well, I want you to just, what I'm trying to do is I'm taking you in and I'm trying to show you these are precise things that we're looking at. And what I don't want, I want you to refrain from magnifying what that is, right? So just go into your, because I think you get confused, and I did too when I was in it. It's extremely confusing. Because there is a party with food, and that's because you're getting this temporary relief from feeling ashamed about the food, right? So we can go into the binge aspect and say, well, once you decide I'm going to eat, don't you agree you're being liberated from the dieting aspect of what you're doing?
Yes.
Okay, that's where the party thing comes in. When you're like, oh, it's like a party. Yes, that's because you are giving yourself a temporary break where you don't have to feel bad about eating. So it feels like, oh, I can just relax. I don't have to feel bad right now. So you're giving yourself temporary grace from the shame of dieting. Okay? So that's what that is. So when you say, but it feels like a party, that's what you're describing, is that aspect. But that's different. That's like a different part. What I'm trying to hone in on is the fact that when you're in that space where you feel like I'm going to die, here it is, it's going to get me. That's why you're negotiating for food. But I need the food. If I can get the food, then this will go away, right? Fuck it. I'm getting my food. And then you're like, and I don't have to feel bad because I'll deal with that later. So when you're in that space and those feelings are arising, okay, in the case that food is not available, what would happen? What would happen?
I would probably have a panic.
Yeah, and you would even go into rage. You would say that again. I can't. Okay, are you on speakerphone?
Yeah, my phone is also just there.
Okay, I can hear you now. Okay, it was like I was talking to you from like a can in a string.
Well, three things would happen. I would have a panic. I would panic. I would probably have a temper tantrum, and then I would I would just surrender and say and let the feeling pass through me
But you wouldn't look at it. But don't look at it. Just breathe. Okay, so temper. So you'd start with the panic, and the panic is the recognition that there it is. It's here. It's kind of like the Grim Reaper's in the room, right? The temper tantrum is a way to try to get what you want. I deserve the food. And you're feeling sorry for yourself. For me. Right? It's like, I deserve it.
With some rage in there, I'd be really pissed off too.
Yeah, and the rage is actually relevant. Like that rage, and it's real too. I remember that so clear as day. It's almost like your eyes turn red and you're like the bull with the fumes coming out your nostrils.
Yeah.
Get out of my way. I'm getting what I want. Anybody that would get in your way. That is so true. Okay. But none of this has to do with the food. It has to do with that panic. Do you see that? That's what I'm trying to help you see. Because I think if you can see that.
There's so many situations. I know that I started out using food after I got put on the diet and started sneaking food.
Yeah.
It became this coping mechanism. I started to use food to deal with, and my mother just kept getting crazier and crazier. I used it to deal with the feeling that I felt towards her that I could not express to her. So because I couldn't express them to her, there was nobody I could talk to about her. So the only choice I had was so I internalized it, and I became, I would eat, or I became very shy and withdrawn from school, and that's where that whole attack thing happened.
Well, yeah, because you feel like you're there. Say that one more time.
And then when I got teased at school, like, there was no outlet for that because my mother would just say, well, my mother tried everything she could to help me lose weight. So when people would tease me at school, she would say, well, that's what you get for.
Oh my God, got it. Yeah, yep. So what we're going to need to do is you're going to have to give that all grace. Just give it all some grace. Okay? Your mom didn't know any different. You responded the way you needed to survive it. Give it all grace. It all makes.
That's how I cope with things as an adult, the same way I did as a child.
Correct, but so by giving it grace, what you're saying is that was appropriate based on the child's perspective and the lack of a voice. You are no longer in that space, right? So what we're going to need to do is put you in that space. We need that space to arise so that we can have a different response. You're not that child anymore, right? If you were given that opportunity right now, you would say something.
Yeah.
You would have talked to child protection. You would have, there would have been a voice. And you're responding as if you still don't have a voice. As if you still are being, held hostage. But you're holding yourself hostage at this point. Your mom isn't. You're stuck. You're kind of stuck in that childish state of mind. And your fear has grown. So it's not even childish anymore. It's like legitimate fear of being murdered. As an adult, it would be very difficult if you're not evolved emotionally to surrender to it, right? So.
Well, it was very confusing because
yeah,
my mom had, like everybody does, a lot of people there was no one I could talk to at school because she knew all the teachers. And so I think it's more of I just didn't have anyone to talk to about it because I think if I did, that probably would have, I would have been able to cope with it better.
Well, listen to how you speak now. So you notice how you do have a voice for yourself now, and you also have some compassion for the situation. You're evolved at this point, but the problem is that's all intellect working right now.
I still react like a child.
Correct. And so you're not really soothing yourself in the circumstance. You're just avoiding it. So you have the intellect and you have you actually have the forgiveness for your mother too. I mean, you have a lot of good things that you are now aware of and aware enough that you're talking about it from such a loving point of view. Right?
Well, I mean, it's really hard to be a parent. I can't imagine. I mean, I'm not a parent.
Yeah, don't forget a parent that has mental health problems. Just keep that in mind. It's like she can't survive in her own mind, let alone understand a child. Plus, she sounds like she has a horrible eating disorder or body image disorder, and she's super insecure. She's dealing with her own immaturity. How is she going to have the maturity then to raise a child? She was really not in a space to have a child.
Right. She wasn't.
No, and you know what? That doesn't mean she's a bad person. It just means she needed help. She needed mental, psychological.
That's why it was so confusing because she wasn't a bad person.
No, and most people aren't.
It made it that much more
hard to see.
Hard to deal with because I would feel guilty for having all these bad feelings about her.
Yeah, and you had no. Yeah, but today you could go, well, of course I was going to have bad feelings, but there was no voice to express it or no understanding. Plus, I didn't have any concept of what she was dealing with. I just knew what I was not getting or where I was lacking. And so, okay, so with that said, at this point, even if you don't feel that you can handle this, I think our goal here is that we position you to experience that feeling of the Grim Reaper, and you allow it. If you can allow that feeling to be there and to face it and address it, acknowledge it, what do you have to lose? You can keep on, you have nothing to lose except for your relationship with food as it is. Your relationship with food, what's going to happen with it when you don't need it anymore? You're going to be friggin' excited. Because I'm positive you don't want this relationship with food. In fact, I am positive you loathe it, hate it, and resent it. You don't want it.
So,
I know.
I don't feel like I can, I just, I don't show up for anybody or anything. I can't have a life if I don't resolve it.
No, well, you can't because your food has to be there at all times. You have to have it around at all times because you never know when that feeling's going to come in, especially in a social environment.
Yeah.
Screw the weight loss aspect of this. It's that psychological, that feeling of death, or like what I call the Grim Reaper. If you were thin and that came in the room and food is what made it better, you're going to get fat again.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not a physical problem here. The physical aspect of this is consequential. It's what you would expect. That part is very gracious. You need to forgive that aspect. Of course, the body's going to respond this way because you're continuously using something that promotes this physical response, but you're using this, the food as a weapon against this other thing. So unless you address this other thing, you'll always need this weapon that you're using. Always. And you can transfer. Well, we need to go into the presence of it. We need to call on it. You need to exist in it, and you have to allow it to be there. Even if you feel, one, it's going to kill you. Two, you can't handle it. You have to do it no matter what. And all you need in the moment is courage to face it. That's all it takes. It's just some courage. Just a little bit. And that courage is going to require a willingness to die. Because that's what it feels is going to happen. It feels like you're going to die.
Yeah.
And so how bad is your life? Is it bad enough you're willing to do this? Because to me, the life that you're living is probably equally, if not worse, than the fear you're refusing to face. Which one's worse? The pain you're not wanting to look at, or the misery you're living in, running away from the pain?
Well, I guess we'll only know if I get into it.
Well, we gotta try it first. You just gotta have some courage, and we can work on that. So
I can't really answer that until actually.
I would agree. I'm excited. Now we're making progress. I think.
You accept text messages at midnight?
You know what? Videotape yourself talking. I'm not kidding.
Oh.
Just record yourself and talk about it, but be present in it, and maybe just open yourself up to this conversation that you and I are having, that maybe it isn't the taste of the food. Maybe that's a cop-out. Because if it's not about the taste of food, it's about something I don't want to address.
I know there's a lot of, on top of the original issue, there's a lot of shame around my behavior that, because of the food, the things that I've done to avoid interaction with people and not showing up for people because of, the choosing to eat or whatever choice, the eating. And so that comes up. I mean, it's not just the initial fear. It's all kinds of fears. And
yeah, but once you have the courage to face fear, just the courage to face fear, that's the beginning. Because then you'll have the courage to face this fear or that fear or this fear, and you can begin to unravel this, and in doing so, you're already free. It's like telling the truth. It's like facing remorse, facing those things. And once you face them, at least you don't have to hold on to what you're doing to deny and avoid them. Again, you either face the pain, or you continue to live in total suffering trying to avoid the pain. Because the suffering is what you have to do to avoid pain. And don't you agree, the term suffering is legitimate? That is a great definition of what it feels like. Total and complete suffering. You either face the pain, or you continue to run away from the pain, which is why you suffer to the degree you do. Which one would you rather? There's a point at which your suffering is so great that the only alternative is to face the pain and to look at it. Just look at it. Even if it feels like it's going to kill you, it feels like you're not going to be able to handle what comes up. Well, by facing it, that is inherently courageous. And you know what happens when you have courage? What happens? That there's something there that you need to experience. You've never experienced it before. You might want to try.
Yeah, I don't have much courage. I really don't.
No, you do. You're just not doing it. Yes, you do. You just haven't done it yet. So you don't really know what's there. So it is blind. It feels blind. It feels like I'm completely just throwing myself over a cliff. I'm just heaving myself over a cliff and I don't know what's there.